The Learning is Personal vision is that we want to build a learning community that meets the individual needs and the individual passions of the students that we serve. Within that vision is we want to measure and communicate learning so that students are an active participant in the learning process, which means grades need to be timely, useful, and actionable. The purpose of this video is to show a simulation of a standards-based gradebook that is a personalized heat map for each individual student to focus on progress and growth. We are all familiar with a traditional report card where one singular number on a progress report or report card is a summary of the student's understanding in that particular subject. We know that in order for that grade to be calculated, there's a list of formative or summative tasks that are averaged together or based on proportional multiplication factor in order to achieve that grade. Now, report card grades, in our argument, is that are not a reliable representation of a child's understanding. The reason why is sometimes these grades are distorted based on student behaviors, meaning taking points off for certain behaviors. These grades can be group assignments. They are an average of the assignments. Typically, these grades do not change over time. Once the student's report card is set in the first grading cycle, it cannot change based on a student's progress and growth. It remains stagnant. Also, report cards, a singular number, it lacks clarity for parents and students on what do I need to work on? Where can I grow and improve? Typically, students are not an active participant in the learning process, especially after that grade is entered into the gradebook and we move on to the next grading cycle. And lastly, grades typically do not measure progress and growth. So what I'd like to do is a simulation to show how a personalized heat map will make students an active participant in the learning process, will communicate their strengths and weaknesses so that they can act on those weaknesses and demonstrate progress and growth over the year. So here's a sixth grade math personalized heat map at the very beginning of the year before a student enters the grade level. There is a list of standards for each strand. So number and operations, proportions, equations, relationships, measurement data, and personal financial literacy are strands for those lists of standards. For the sake of this simulation, a student can master material if they have 85% or greater. They're proficient if they achieve 70 to 84%. They're progressing if they're greater than 50% understanding but less than 70, and they have needs improvement if they're less than 50% accuracy on a certain area. So let's say a student goes through the first 9 weeks and it's October. As you can see, some of the skills the student is proficient at, many of them he is progressing, but there are some skills where the child needs improvement. And as you can see, a child can definitely see, and a parent and staff teacher as well can see the exact strengths and weaknesses for the child. And just imagine that a student uses an online learning program to target those individual needs, to provide additional practice, additional assessment to demonstrate progress and growth. At the same time, a teacher can pull data for like students, formative data, and pull them into small groups and provide targeted, specific coaching and feedback in that area so the student can then go back, do additional practice, additional assessment to show progress and growth. As we go through the end of the second grading cycle, you can see that a student in the first few strands, number and operation proportions, did demonstrate growth in specific skills or areas, but they also had additional skills that they learned. And in many cases, they were proficient in progressing. They did have some skills that were mastery or needs improvement. As you can see with these blue arrows, it shows that the student, based on the material from the first grading cycle, they were able to do additional practice and demonstrate additional understanding. So the learning within that strand, and as well as the overall grade, demonstrates communicating growth and it improves. Now let's move on to after the third grading cycle in March. As you can see, previous grading cycle materials that the student did demonstrate additional growth, such as in 6.2C and 6.4C, the student moved from progressing into proficient. There were new skills that were taught during this grading cycle, and they had some progressing and some proficient skills. As we move on to the end of the school year, into May and June, as you can see, they have made improvement from the first, second, and third grading cycle in certain skills. And then they've had a new set of skills in personal financial literacy that they were taught. This personalized heat map allows parents and students and staff members to see progress and growth in each individual skill, allows the students to see their individual needs and to focus on those using strategic use of technology. Now, let's just imagine if this young person were to go to summer school. Traditionally, in a previous summer school, they would be grouped in with other students and they would take the most difficult set of skills and everybody would be taught that set of skills. In this particular situation, because there's a personalized heat map for each individual student, what they would be able to do is identify the weaknesses for that specific child, and they would be able to provide summer school to that specific student based on their individual needs. Now, the length of time for summer school would be defined for each individual student by basically achieving proficiency in the skills that they have the greatest need. So as you can see, a child after maybe 2 or 3 weeks of summer school focusing on these specific skill areas, that they would be able to improve those. And as you can see, the overall grade for the child and each individual strand, you can see where their strengths are and where they can improve. Now, this personalized standards-based heat map aligned with a fully online program would change the system. And how would it change the system? Please view the document on the AMS website, Learning is Personal Vision webpage, to get more information. But basically, having a personalized standards-based heat map for each child would change the system for grades, would allow students and parents to see exactly where they can improve. Because parents often say, how can I help my child? A parent could look at this personalized heat map and they would have resources online to help their child get additional practice and reassessment and growth. How would this change data integration and collection? That this would create a greater bridge between elementary to middle to see strengths and weaknesses, but also from middle school to high school to see strengths and weaknesses. Automatically, you know where a student's gaps are so they can be addressed right away. Also, this would provide greater information for students of need, such as 504 and special ed when writing IEP goals. What about differentiation? Strategic use of technology would allow online programs to be the second teacher of the room. It gives teachers flexibility to provide blended learning opportunities to meet the individual needs of our students. And this can be found through a small group blended learning instructional model. Intervention. This data would allow us to more purposely target the individual needs of students, from the grade level math classroom into the math strategies classroom, all the way into summer school. That students would be able to see their needs and be able to address those needs where they have. And lastly, as demonstrated in the simulation, it would help greatly with summer school because each student would have a different pathway and be receiving different levels of support to target their specific needs. And that means that summer school for some young people may just last a few days, but for others, it may last weeks as they work towards proficiency in each individual skill. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope to help you. If you would like to support Atascocita Middle School and the Learning is Personal Vision, please reach out to us. Thank you.